Hey guys, it's Edward with Reef Ed here. Today I want to talk about the Copperband butterfly fish. This fish has got a reputation for being extremely difficult to keep, difficult to acclimate. I don't think that's entirely warranted. And in fact, I think copperbands are actually quite easy to keep once you've gotten them onto frozen foods. And there's a few tips and tricks that you can do to ensure success that I think will allow you to keep a copperband in your aquarium. So before we get into acclimation, let's just briefly touch on the basics. If we pull up Live Aquaria's entry here, there's some general information about copper bands. They say care level is difficult. Obviously, I disagree with that. That's why I'm making this video. Temperament peaceful? Absolutely. Unless you're trying to pair them up with other copper bands, they're extremely peaceful. Reef compatibility. This is something we need to touch on. They are known to go after LPS. I have not seen my copper band ever go after any coral. However, I would be remiss if I did not mention the fact that I seemingly struggle with keeping acans, and I cannot figure out why. So take that as you will. It may be that my copper band at night or some other time when I'm not looking likes to have a snack. Water quality, your standard reef tank conditions are going to be just fine. Max size and minimum tank size, I don't really agree with this. I've never seen an 8-inch copper band. And in my experience, copper bands, once they get to 3, 4 inches, the growth really slows down quite a bit. So you don't have to worry about copper bands growing very quickly and outgrowing your tank. I don't think the minimum tank size of 125 is accurate. I think you could probably go as low as 70. The other thing we should talk about briefly is lymphocystis. Copperbands seem really prone to this. I believe it's a viral infection of some kind. In any case, it seems to be benign. It'll show up as some white spots either in the fish store or once they've come home. Then it'll develop into some black spots around the edges of the fin, and then it'll just disappear and resolve within a few months. Okay, so we talked about basic care requirements and we talked about lymphocystis. Now there's the three problems that you're going to have to solve in order to keep these fish long term. Number one, you've got to choose a healthy fish to start. Two, you've got to get the fish to eat something while it's acclimating to your tank so that it doesn't starve to death. And number three, you've got to transition the fish onto some kind of prepared food that you can feed as a staple, like mysis. All right, choosing a healthy specimen. These two copper bands were at my local fish store, and I thought they were really good candidates for this video. Both of them are healthy and active. And if you notice, it's a little grainy, but they're not emaciated. What you want to avoid are copper bands that look like this. Now, this one in particular, I think is actually a juvenile, but I'm using it as an example of the kind of emaciation on an adult copper band that you want to avoid when you're buying it from the store. It's going to give you less room for error when you're trying to acclimate it and get it to start eating in your aquarium. And that brings us to how do we get copper bands to eat? This is the number one cause of mortality with new copper bands introduced to a system. And the secret is clams. Specifically, I like to go with cockles. So let's talk about that. Cockles are just a small type of clam. I prefer them because of their small size. Little neck clams can be on the large side and can actually be too large for a smaller copperband. But if you can't find any, then just get the smallest little neck clams that you can from your local grocery store. I have no trouble finding cockles at my local Asian market, and I take the trip about every 3 to 6 months to restock. The key here is live. You want them to be closed and alive. The reason for this is you're going to take them home and freeze them while they're alive and closed, and that's going to accomplish two things. One, it freezes and preserves the clam. They'll last 3 to 6 months that way. It's also going to kill off any non-bacterial nasties that we don't want in our tank that might be in there. And two, when we drop it in the tank, it will slowly thaw and open, which provides the perfect feeding opportunity for a copper band's little mouth. And the only competition is going to be the swarm of hermits and Nassarius snails that are going to show up. I've never seen this method fail with a healthy copperband, whether it was eating in the store or not. And now that you have it eating, you're not on a clock anymore, so it can grow, get comfortable, settle into its new environment, and now we can work on acclimating the fish to other foods like mysis. Getting your copperband to eat mysis or other prepared foods is easy, but it can take some time, and it's entirely up to your fish. I've tried live blackworms from Eastern Aquatics, which many report to have used to get copperbands to eat. They arrived healthy and were easy to care for with a blackworm keeper, but none of my fish wanted anything to do with them. You may want to consider that as an option, but just know that they die almost instantly in salt water. They need to be kept in a fridge, and they're really nasty, so your wife might divorce you. Another option I used successfully was live brine shrimp. They don't provide a lot of nutrition, but my copperband went after them voraciously, and soon after it was eating frozen mysis and frozen brine. So there you have it, frozen clams. Again, once these guys are eating something, they're not difficult fish to keep at all. So let me know if you found this helpful. It seems a lot of folks have a hard time keeping copperbands alive because they can't get them to eat. So let me know what you think. Let me know what your experience is. Have you tried to acclimate copperbands using clams before? Have you tried using something else like mussels or maybe even the Hikari frozen clams? Let me know. Thanks. Until next time.